Well, good morning. Welcome to Daily Videos with me, Pastor Michelle. Today's Saturday, January 30th, and let's get started with prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So let's get started with God's love note, but first a reading from 1 Timothy. The saying is sure and worthy of full acceptance, that Christ came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the foremost. And God's love note. I do not work through perfect people, as the author of this letter knew, and I've never known a sinner I did not love. I love you. I want your life to be a life of wholeness and fulfillment and millions of moments of joy. Know that you have done nothing that can separate you from me. Know that I long for your liberation and that I can offer compassion and forgiveness for anything, or even the same thing over and over until you are truly freed from it. Today I invite you to receive that compassion, to let go of something you want forgiveness for or do not think you deserve forgiveness for. And know that my love is enough to cover you. My Son came that you might be freed. Let him unlock the chains today that weigh you down. All right. I love that. One of my favorite verses is the Romans passage where it says nothing can separate us from God. And I love that passage almost enough to even put it on my, get a tattoo, because I have this tattoo. I would love to get another one, maybe on this arm, that says you are loved, or nothing can separate us from God's love. Yeah. So anyway, my glasses look, well, I know you don't recognize me without my glasses, do you? That looks a little better, doesn't it? All right, so they were a little dirty. So let's continue on talking about women in the Bible. So today we're going to talk about Mary the Magdalene, who's gotten a bad rap over the years, but she was one of Jesus's most faithful followers. So at the beginning of his ministry, Jesus and his small group of followers moved to Capernaum, where Simon's mother-in-law had a house. Jesus then chose his apostles from the local fishermen and led his followers on an extended campaign through the towns and villages of Galilee. It's likely that Jesus' visits to townships around the Sea of Galilee included a place called Magadan or Magdala, center of the local fish industry. So here's a picture of Mary. So in the Talmud, the town is known as Magdala Nunya. It just sounds like Nunya business. Called Tarasia, fish salters in Greek. In fact, Magdalene fish sauce was a favorite condiment throughout Palestine and Roman Empire. Recent excavations have revealed that the town reached its peak in the decades before the birth of Jesus. One of Jesus' followers came from Magdala. Given that Mary was a very common name, the Gospels refer to her as Mary Magdalene. Mary may have come into contact with Jesus because of his powers. This may suggest that Mary suffered from a chronic disease, which in antiquity was often associated with bad spirits. Mary defied the stereotype of a young Jewish woman in first century Galilee, whereas unwed women were usually restrained from leaving their home without a relative or an escort. Mary went boldly where Jesus went, and together with other women, provided for them out of their own resources. This may indicate that Mary's family was affluent, which would also explain her greater freedom of movement. So yeah, I kind of skipped over that, but there is that passage where it says that she was possessed, she had demons, and more than likely it just meant that she was sick. Because sometimes and it could have been a mental illness, and many times in those days, if someone had like a mental illness, they may have associated it with more of a demon possession. Just like I was told when I was struggling with my sexuality, that it could have been a demon possession. The demon of flannel. The lesbian flannel. Just made myself laugh. All right. So as months passed, Mary became one of Jesus's most loyal followers. She, together with another small group of women, stood fearlessly at Jesus's cross after all the apostles had gone in hiding. You know, I joke about the demon possession, but I did. That was something that it was thought that maybe I do need an exorcism. Thank God that didn't happen. But there was that thought that maybe I was possessed by a lesbian demon. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I mean, can you imagine someone thinking you're possessed just because you were attracted to women and you were a woman? I don't know how I have came to be how I am now. So how I got through all those days back then. Anyway, let's turn our attention to humans of New York. So this guy with his cute dog, he says, I spoil every girl I'm with. I'm bringing this dog to my girlfriend now. I've already gotten her a snake, a rabbit, and 2 dogs. She loves animals. She wants to be a vet. Ew, he has a snake on his arm. That's gross. And this guy says, I've got what I want. I've got a place to live, a girlfriend, and a child. My biggest struggle is just figuring out how to maintain. All right, so, I love animals too. And actually, I used to want to be a vet. That was my aspirations when I was in high school. I had this whole plan, but, God had other plans. And I am 100%, more than 100% sure that I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing now, being a pastor. So anyway, sorry, I'm picking up my fingernail. That's shouldn't be doing that. So let's get into Mockingjay, shall we? And hear what's happening. In the silence that follows, I notice the lines that have formed between Peter's eyebrows. He has guessed, or he has been told, but the capital has not killed or punished him. For right now, that exceeds my wildest hopes. I drink in his wholeness, the soundness of his body and mind. It runs through me like the morphine they gave me in the hospital, dulling the pain of the last weeks. Why don't you tell us about the last night in the arena? Help us sort a few things out. Peter nods, but takes his time speaking. That last night, well, first of all, you have to imagine how it felt in the arena. It was like being an insect trapped under a bowl filled with steaming air, and all around you, jungle, green and alive and ticking. That giant clock ticking away your life, every hour promising some new horror. You have to imagine that in the past 2 days, 16 people have died, some of them defending you. At the rate things are going, the last 8 will be dead by morning, save one, the victor, and your plan is that it won't be you. My body breaks out in a sweat at the memory. My hand slides down the screen and hangs limply at my side. Peter doesn't need a brush to paint images from the games. He works just as well in words. Once you're in the arena, the rest of the world becomes very distant. All the people and things you loved or cared about almost cease to exist. The pink sky and the monsters in the jungle and the tributes who want your blood become your final reality, the only one that ever mattered. As bad as it makes you feel, you're going to have to do some killing, because in the arena you only get one wish, and it's very costly. It costs your life? Oh no, it costs a lot more than your life, Peter answered Caesar. To murder innocent people, it costs everything you are. Everything you are, repeats Caesar quietly. A hush has fallen over the room, and I can feel it spreading across Panem, a nation leaning in toward its screens, because no one has ever talked about what it's really like in the arena before. Peter goes on. So you hold on to your wish, and that last night, yes, my wish was to save Katniss, but even without knowing about the rebels, it didn't feel right. Everything was too complicated. I found myself regretting I hadn't run off with her earlier in the day, as she had suggested, but there was no getting out of it at that point. You were too caught up in Beatty's plan to electrify the Salt Lake, Caesar said. Too busy playing allies with the others. I should have never let them separate us. That's when I lost her. When you stayed at the lightning tree and she and Johanna Mason took the coil of wire down to the water, Caesar clarifies. I didn't want to, Peter flushes in agitation, but I couldn't argue with Beatty without indicating we were about to break away from the alliance. When that wire was cut, everything just went insane. I can only remember bits and pieces trying to find her, watching Brutus kill Shafe, killing Brutus myself. I know she was calling my name. Then the lightning bolt hit the tree, and the force field around the arena blew out. Katniss blew it out, Peter. You've seen the footage. She didn't know what she was doing. None of us could follow Beatty's plan. You can see her trying to figure out what to do with that wire. All right, it just looked suspicious, as if she was part of the rebels' plan all along. Peter's on his feet, leaning into Caesar's face, hands locked on the arms of his interviewer's chair. Really? And was it part of her plan for Johanna to nearly kill her? For that electric shock to paralyze her? To trigger the bomb? He's yelling now. She didn't know, Caesar. Neither of us knew anything except that we were trying to keep each other alive. Caesar places his hand on Peter's chest in a gesture that's both self-protective and consolatory. Okay, Peter, I believe you. Okay. Peter withdraws from Caesar, pulling back his hands, running them through his hair. Mussing his carefully styled blonde curls, he slumps back in his chair, distraught. Caesar waits a moment. What about your mentor? Hey, Mitch. Peter's face hardened. I don't know what Haymitch knew. Could he have been part of the conspiracy? He never mentioned it. What does your heart tell you, Peta? That I shouldn't have trusted him, that's all. I haven't seen Haymitch since I attacked him on the hovercraft, leaving long claw marks down his face. I know it's bad for him here. District 13 strictly forbids any production or consumption of intoxicating beverages, and even the rubbing alcohol in the hospital is kept under lock and key. Finally, Haymitch is being forced into sobriety with no secret stashes or home-brewed concoctions to ease his transition. They've got him in seclusion until he's dried out, as he's not deemed fit for public display. It must be excruciating, but I lost all my sympathy for Haymitch when I realized how he had deceived us. I hope he's watching the Capitol broadcast now so he can see that Peta has cast him off as well. Caesar pats Peta's shoulder. We can stop now if you want. Was there more to discuss? I was going to ask your thoughts on the war, but if you're too upset... Oh, I'm not too upset to answer that. And then he looked straight into the camera. I want everyone watching, whether you're on the Capitol or on the rebel side, to stop for just a moment and think about what this war can mean. For human beings, we almost went extinct fighting one another before. Now our numbers are even fewer. Our conditions more tenuous. Is this really what we want to do, kill ourselves off completely? In the hopes that what? Some decent species will inherit the smoking remains of the earth? Well, darn, man, it's almost as if Peta's speaking to us now. You know, we are still people who are fighting one another when we should be fighting with each other, fighting to end world hunger, fighting to end all the atrocities that have taken over the world. So just my thoughts. All right, God bless you all, my friends.